Hi, thank you for tuning in for this video. This is the second video in a series where we're unpacking the coronavirus relief bill. In this video, we're going to hone in on the second draw PPP loans. Those are our kind of second bite at the apple when it comes to the PPP loan program. So in today's video, we're going to briefly touch on what are the eligible entities, what is the loan amount, and what are some of the critical dates that we know, and probably more importantly, that we currently don't know. So the first, who's eligible for this? Well, you need to have received your first PPP loan. Second, you need to have exhausted those funds. They did not identify that you needed to apply for forgiveness, but that you needed to exhaust those funds. Now, there are two changes in terms of the eligibility. The first one, probably not applicable to many people who watch my videos, but originally the PPP loan was available for entities that had 500 employees or less. That now has been decreased, and the second draw PPP are available for those who employ 300 employees or less. And then an important aspect that was not part of the first kind of PPP, first time we're seeing it in this program, is there's a needs test. That needs test is based off of a 25% reduction in gross receipts, collections, for a quarter compared to the same quarter in the prior year. So let's look at a quick example. In this example, we're looking at a solo practitioner and kind of trending out what I'm seeing here in quarter four for this individual to kind of put together a full year for you. But what you can see is in that top line, the 2020 numbers by quarter versus the 2019 numbers. First quarter started off well. Wasn't keeping quite pace that he had in the prior year, but a really productive quarter. Second, which is the quarter which a lot of us were shut down in, we see just a total drop in terms of collections. Now that rebounded in quarter three, where he did additional collections to what we saw in quarter three of 2019, so actually a gross quarter. And then in quarter four, I just trended that out, kind of looking like it's going to be pretty close to the same, maybe a 6% decrease. For the entire year, it's a 15% decrease. But what we're seeing in the way that the bill is drafted, this individual would still be able to apply for a second draw PPP loan, because in quarter two, that 55% reduction, certainly greater than a 25% reduction. So for those who are watching this video, really hone in on quarter two. That's when the vast majority of our practices were shuttered. And so that 25% threshold that we have in the needs test likely is going to be able to be found in that quarter two. Now, the next aspect of this, what's the amount that we can apply for? Well, exact same approach is what we had for the original loan, 2.5 times your monthly payroll costs. Now, the time period that we can look back at is the entirety of 2019, which we generally were doing for the first round of the PPP. We also have the ability to look back at a rolling 12 months. Now, because of some of the moves that we made due to expanded unemployment and having our offices shuttered, it's unlikely that the trailing 12 months is greater than payroll costs that we had in 2019. But it's something to be aware of in case there was a unique situation in your practice. They have stated in the act that there will be a short form application if your loan amount is $150,000 or under. Not a lot of great details at this point, because you can see in that last bullet point, it's yet to be released. But we know it includes two important items. One is that you have to certify eligibility, and second is you have to be able to produce documentation of that revenue loss standard. Now, wanted to kind of hone back the last video that I did, unpacked the expanded use of PPP funds. It's my hope on this second draw that we continue to utilize cash compensation as the primary, if not sole, method to achieve forgiveness. However, if there's been changes in your staff, or if we're moving forward into the next quarter and we have some type of additional reduction, good to be able to have some of these additional operating costs to be able to have that forgiveness hone in on. Now, that standard of 60% going towards payroll costs, 60% of the forgiveness amount going towards payroll costs, that stays in effect. So, nice if we can use 100% cash compensation, but if we use 60% payroll costs and include additional overhead, good to know that our ability to have this loan forgiven is pretty high. And then the last piece that I want to make sure you're aware of today are some of the critical dates. First one, when can you apply? We don't know. Treasury and SBA have been tasked with moving forward expeditiously in setting up the application process. A lot of different things that the Treasury and the SBA have been tasked with. So the ultimate time frame in terms of when this is going to come online for us to be able to apply, the starting point of when we can apply, we're not entirely sure. Likely going to have additional guidance as we move towards that date as well. However, if we look at that kind of last or the middle piece in there of the loans available, there's only $284.5 billion available for this round. I would highly suggest go back to that quarter by quarter, make sure we're getting the documentation to show that we meet that revenue loss threshold, and have that ready. Contact your banker, and if you're interested in the second round, let them know you're interested in the second round so that we're able to be front of the line when it comes to the application for this. Unlike the first round of PPP loans, this is one that I would suggest we move forward with kind of as quickly as possible to ensure that we've got our spot in line. There are certain loan amount within the second PPP that is going to be held aside for those who employ 10 employees or less. So that should help a lot of the smaller practices that we work with and are out there securitize these dollars. But I want to try to play the game of going into one of those specific buckets that we've got kind of a division of how these dollars need to be administered. Just plan on applying quickly. The second aspect, how long are they going to be making these loans for? Well, they'll be making these loans until March 31st or until when those dollars are exhausted. Then similar to the original PPP, the time period for which you can use these dollars is anywhere from 8 weeks all the way up to 24 weeks. So that gives us a good amount of time to be able to exhaust these dollars on forgivable expenses and kind of make sure that we're putting together our application for forgiveness, utilizing as minimal of those cost categories as possible so that we can decrease the document retention that we need to have in order to justify this after the fact if, in the unusual situation where we were being audited. As always, please send me your questions. We're starting to analyze a lot of information here. There's a lot of unknowns. Your questions will help me and our team target our research. And finally, just thank you very much for following along with this. Please feel free to send this video to any colleagues who might find it useful. Thank you.